regime change in Iran?
Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen. For 47 years, they've been talking and talking and talking. In the meantime, we've lost a lot of lives while they talk, and legs blown off, arms blown off, faces blown off. It's been going on for a long time. So let's see what happens. In the meantime,
President Trump has been talking about the negotiations with Iran, saying he hopes they work, but at the same time building up significantly in the Middle East. In fact, the USS Gerald Ford, that carrier group, is getting into position, preparing to be on station in the Middle East here. That is the second carrier group that is there in the Middle East. Axios writes Trump sends second aircraft carrier to Gulf amid Iran threats. The move will increase the pressure on Tehran during the nuclear negotiations, making the U.S. military threat even more menacing. The Ford, which is now in the Caribbean, will need 3 or 4 weeks to arrive in the region, but it is heading that way. Let's start there with our panel. Fox News contributor Ben Domenech, host of the Big Ben podcast, Annie Linskey, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and former chief of staff to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, Melissa DeRosa. Annie, it's significant that the president said maybe regime change is the best thing for Iran.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Oh, 100%. It's very significant. My ears perked up a few hours ago when I was sitting at my desk listening to that. You know, the president has been asked about Iran in almost every single gaggle he's had with reporters. And as you know, this president is very, very accessible to journalists. And his language hasn't changed much. He's always said, I want a deal. I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to be negotiating with the Iranians in the press. We want a deal. They should get a deal. And this time, really for the first time, he weighed in and opined on a regime change as something that would be positive. And to me, that is a ratcheting up of rhetoric as you're seeing the president moving assets, another carrier group into the Gulf.
Yeah, and Ben, you know, Reuters is reporting, and we can put up the map of where things are right now as far as military assets in the region. But Reuters is reporting the U.S. military preparing for possibility of carrying out sustained weeks-long operations against Iran if required, according to 2 U.S. officials. And our own folks say yes, with 2 battle carrier groups there, that is very possible, preparing.
I think that there's no question that the president has basically put a timeline on this in terms of any kind of negotiation or back and forth with Iran, and he's signaling right now that he's more willing than perhaps ever before to lean into this regime, which is at its weakest point historically, we have to say. The one thing that I think should bear some caution is that I'm not sure the president or his allies have made the case to the American people about what it would take to actually do this when it comes to Iran. It's not quite the same as some of the other strikes that he's taken out and some of the other expeditions that he's taken under his wing when it comes to foreign policy. And I think that there should be more investment from the American people when it comes to this type of conjecture about what he could possibly do in this situation.
Yeah, Melissa, there are questions on both parties about what comes next, you know, if you go forward with this.
No, look, I think that the president has tried, for weeks on end to do this diplomatically, and he is demonstrating to the regime in the Middle East that he is serious and that he is making all of the moves that if he has to use force, he will not hesitate. And we've seen him not hesitate in other places. So I agree that he needs to be making this case to the American public if he is indeed going to use force, or else you're going to end up in a Venezuela situation where one morning the country wakes up and it's like whiplash and you have no idea how you got there. So if he is going to move forward and it looks more likely that he's going to do this, it would behoove him to lay the groundwork for the American public to get their buy-in, or else it may backfire on him, even if it is the right mission.
Yeah, I could see some people saying, listen, we have seen what happened in Iran with the protesters. We saw the president react. Help is on the way. So some of that has been laid. That groundwork has been laid. Meantime, overseas, Annie, you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the New York Congresswoman, and the Munich Security Conference getting a lot of attention, as is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Take a listen.
They are looking to withdraw the United States from the entire world so that we can turn into an age of authoritarians that can carve out the world where Donald Trump can command the Western Hemisphere.
We live in a new era in geopolitics, and it's going to require all of us to sort of re-examine what that looks like and what our role is going to be. And we've had many of these conversations in private with many of our allies, and they are our allies.
Washington Post writes it this way. Ocasio-Cortez Rubio offered dueling visions of the world order in Munich. Potential 2028 presidential candidates are expected to challenge Europe's ruling class in their own way as the Democratic and Republican establishments struggle to convince U.S. voters of their party's value on the world stage. Rubio, widely seen as the good cop in the Trump administration's ever-widening conflict with Europe. Ocasio-Cortez, meanwhile, expected to decry the influence of billionaires and corporate interests on the international policy she views as hostile to the working class. Quite something as far as the splash at the Munich Security Conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is almost like a 2028 presidential cattle call, and I would not have expected the first one to be overseas in Munich. You really do see, I know Rubio has very much emerged as a star of this administration on foreign policy. AOC is not somebody who's necessarily considered to have deep foreign policy views. This is a little surprising to see her stepping out in this way in Munich, but she's going to be continue to be a leader in the party, and I think maybe this is sort of a trial run for her.
She'll be a factor. We'll see. All right, let's do winners and losers. Ben, winner first, loser next.
My winner for the week is Roger Goodell. Expand the international game with his halftime show, more international games than ever, and a win against the NFLPA. My loser of this week is Corey Lewandowski, who I think is at the center of a campaign. The knives are out for DHS leadership generally, but I think he's getting the most blame at this moment.
Melissa, winner and then loser.
For my winner, I chose the U.S. women's curling team, first time ever gold winners, beat Canada. And the loser, I'm sorry, it goes to Kathy Rumler and her friends at Goldman Sachs, who, when you rip off a Band-Aid, usually you should do it quickly, and they're doing it slowly, which I think is just going to lead to more headaches between now and June.
All right, Annie, quickly, winner and loser.
My winner is going to be Bad Bunny's Trees, because they were having a great time dancing. And the loser goes to anybody who lives or works near the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., because it had the largest sewage spill in American history, and we'll be smelling that for a while.
Oh, man. All right, we'll leave it at there. Panel, thanks. Have a good weekend.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.